This week on the Rental Report Review. Hers was the deadliest of the seven sins, Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. He was soon to become the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany, The Damned, 1969. His CIA codename is Condor. In the next 72 hours, almost everyone he trusts will try to kill him. 3 Days of the Condor, 1975. In 1,000 years, Gandahar was destroyed. 1,000 years ago, Gandahar will be saved. And what can't be avoided will be. Gandahar, 1987. The first film in a series about a noble samurai and his son fallen from grace through a conspiracy, and now under constant fear of death by assassination. Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance, 1972. Really hard to talk about this one without spoiling it, but I will say this is a nearly flawless, incredibly fucked up, insatiable woman narrative that I think is ultimately a backdoor feminist film, pun somewhat intended. More often than not, a film like this, especially in this era, takes party with the man against a hysterical villainess obsessed with extracting every ounce of vitality from her lover. But Gene Tierney's Ellen is so clearly, so absolutely in the right here, and everyone around here is so clueless, so inconsiderate, so entitled. I might be saying this because I fell completely head over heels for her the moment she turned her gaze upward, but I also think that she did nothing wrong, metaphorically, and was totally justified in everything she did, metaphorically.
She would cheat, lie.
The lady has reasonable expectations, and no one is seemingly willing to put in the slightest effort to live up to common decency. I would do anything for your love, Ellen. The problem is, as good as Darryl F. Zanuck was in crafting these, having writers work from synopsis to treatment to script, interrogating every stage along the way over and over again, this one ultimately falls flat on its face in the final act because of narrative shortcuts to zip through a swerve into a courtroom drama with little to no jurisprudence. I get that we're trying to wrap it up here, but this sets an astonishing precedent for yada yada yadaing through complicated legal affairs that could have been riveting. Damn.
What are you running away from?
I give Leave Her to Heaven 3.75 stars.
Ellen, when we were kids, you used to torment me every way you could think of.
Is this film better with sex, overt sex, on-screen sex? The innuendo is giddily titillating as hell, but a character so voraciously sexually consuming would make so much more sense here. Decades later, Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct, exhibits A and B. Cornell Wilde, you know he is capable of being the man Ellen needs. Just give the woman what she needs, Dick. Slow film stocks all day, every day. Dreamy is an understatement, which ultimately makes me mostly forgive the last act, but just barely.
Frühling kommt, der Sperling biebt, Duft aus Blütenkelchen.
Somehow this is my first Visconti film. I've known about him for quite some time, running back to junior high, first coming across his name in reference to Death in Venice somewhere in Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, which, given the context of this film, might be one of the best associations I could think of.
These are the damned.
Nazi as archetypal vampire is not a stunning leap of metaphor. The central corrupting moral rot of those taken by National Socialism are most certainly cursed to a hollowing, incestuous, suicidal path. I know next to nothing about Visconti, other than he made another movie called Death in Venice and some celebrated masterwork called The Leopard, and mock sardonicism. But this feels like an adroit, lavish, what Italian filmmaker isn't lavish in some regard? Even the neorealists have flourishes of emotional or locational lavishness. Visconti feels stripped down here in many ways to bare essentials. Dynastic manor palaces are mostly empty. A ruddy Weimar hideout apartment with dirty walls is haunted by just a few reclusive souls. The few standout moments of ascendant bacchanalia slumping into stunning massacre are the few exceptional contrapasso which bring the central deceit of the Reich into focus.
Who's always been my nightmare. You give him everything.
Throughout, Visconti and Nannuzzi and DeSantis deploy probing zooms as the primary means of cinematic communication. Fast, medium, slow, exacting, cascading, searching, frantically holding the frame, narrowing the view, predator closing in on prey, the hunted's vision tunneling in on approaching fangs, or crushed in terror, unable to grasp for exits. I give The Damned 4 stars. Helmut Berger is incendiary, a nervous, godforsaken panther prowling for love and attention, biting when it's given. I guess calling him vampiric would also be apt and close the opening metaphor. Although seemingly loosely based on real people, I'm not entirely sure how to read Berger's Martin's deviance. He seems to be more iconographic, a semiotic sign, a collapsed metaphor of various genetic, social, moral perversions. There are a couple of different ways to read him, and maybe that's the point. It's at least mildly hilarious and telling that Visconti's preferred version of this is the English cut, a subliminal tie to American industrial wealth funding and later subsuming the Third Reich. Is that a stretch? Not a stretch? Either way, more Visconti, please. Another one difficult to talk about without spoiling.
This is the Major. This is Joe Turner.
In short, this is an age-old tale of intelligence agencies run amok, which goes back at least to the Holy Office of the Inquisition in Spain. Flash forward a couple hundred years to the founding of the CIA, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, merger of the US OSS and the Nazi intelligence, counterintelligence apparatus led by Reinhard Gehlen to choke out communism in Asia and control the world's natural resources through full-spectrum dominance. Check out either draft of the defense policy planning document made by a couple of chill cats in 1992, or peruse the Project for a New American Century. Anyway, spies are cool, and our spies are the coolest. And I'm sure there are a few good apples in the bunch, like, say, the fictional hero Joseph Turner, played here by Robert Redford. Does knowing any of this going into the film dampen the experience? Hell no. I feel it deepens it. It makes it all the more thrilling and dangerous. This is an incredible, riveting spy caper of the first 70s order. Everyone, especially Sidney Pollack, are firing on all cylinders. This one's been popping up a little on X lately and was filleted in Marvel's Winter Soldier a few years back. But the question that keeps circling when the youngins finally get around to scoping this one is, what the hell happened to adult thrillers? Couple of reasons I can see. These 70 espionage thrillers were covert reportage, limited hangouts, not the fantastical conspiracy theory, nameless bad other guys of today. The work then was so much more antagonistic to the establishment, which has since co-opted the entire apparatus to produce outright recruitment propaganda, cough Zero Dark 30 and its ilk. Even when not fully propagandizing, there seems to be a certain fatalistic acceptance to the way things are these days. There's no real fight on screen.
Well, I may surprise you.
There used to be an embracing of ambiguity in character and storytelling, and there was trust in audiences to follow along and catch up. Most of the action was communicated through action, silent process. Maybe because there was still a clear lineage and engagement with pre-war expressionistic and silent cinema where filmmakers and actors knew how to tell a story through gazes and shot composition, editing, etc. Instead of the non-practitioners needing the words to say the things on the page or no green light, and the droves of the newest new Hollywood who couldn't even name 5 movies before 1999. I kid. End of rant.
But end it.
I give 3 Days of the Condor 4.5 stars. Robert goddamn Redford. Do we yet have a successor? Josh Brolin? Maybe Adam Driver? I am not that deep into Redford's oeuvre, but he excels at the intelligent novice, knowledgeable but out of his depth, and eager to pick it up even as he takes steps forwards and backwards along the way. Those steely, dreamy eyes and that disarming smile go a long way.
Message prioritaire, message prioritaire.
Another case of the I wanted to loves. I saw and loved La Planète Sauvage, aka Fantastic Planet, pretty early in my cinematic development. All that rambling and preamble to say, les sigh. This did not work for me, like, at all. Well, nearly at all. My primary issue, and I should say that I watched the French version with English subs, is that the story is actually so completely at odds with itself, and in fact celebrates what it is purportedly against. Or, to be generous, at least accepts the moral shortcomings of its protagonist in the most flippantly French philosophical way possible. A future idealistic utopia has some secret discarded experiments, which, you know what, I don't want to spoil it. There seems to be a lot of love for this, and I don't really want to yuck anyone's yum. But I maintain that scratching just below the gorgeously designed surface of this reveals an unconscious celebration of imperial technocracy. Scare quote, feminist imperial technocracy, but imperial technocracy all the same. I give Gandahar 3 stars. The design work by Kaza is some of the best of the Metal Erland alumni. The music is so fucking cool and vibey. Those 2 elements alone are worth the price of admission or rental, and why I can't totally write it off. Project it onto the wall of your next bougie party in the hills. But for my money, I think Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and La Jetée eat this film's message narrative lunch. Totally want to check out the Masters of Time, though. All hail Mobius. Somehow, I concocted a surveillance state triple feature. In this adapted classic, the Shogun's second, Executioner for the Sake of Oversimplification, is framed by the shogunate's intelligence apparatus in a play to take their most dangerous obstacle off the board in their plot to overthrow the government they serve. See, any time an intelligence gathering organization is instantiated, it goes off the rails. I've seen this before, but I couldn't remember if I had. But I do know that I've read the entire translated manga series, all 28 volumes. If you're a fan of samurai stories or historical fiction in general, it's one of the most rewarding reads I've ever experienced. Impeccably researched and exhilaratingly told and illustrated. I cheered, I braced, I laughed, I learned, and by the end, I wept. Kazuo Koike is a master of genre and writing himself into corners and just plausibly vaulting his characters out of those corners in the most intelligent, surprising, and fulfilling ways. There's a fun-size sampling in this 90 minutes, and spoiler, some of the best is yet to come. This is the first of 6, and I plan to do a special episode of Rental Report Review where I look at them all in total, but I can say right out of the gate, what this installment lacks in, say, extended production value, it more than makes up for with energy and bold compositions. I give Lone Wolf and Cub Sword of Vengeance 3.75 stars. Table setting episodes are always yeoman's work. Tomisabaru Wakayama is not exactly my fantasy casting of Ogami Ito. Toshiro Mifune and Tatsuya Nakadai never did get around to making that love child as far as I know. But it's imperative to have a martial artist in the robes, and Wakayama-sama is it. But Akihiro Tomikawa nails it as Daigoro. Legend. This week, my weekly pick of the week is, how could I ever not give the one I love everything I can? Everything she deserves. Leave Her to Heaven. Found out about this in a clip of Scorsese recalling how shook he was by it. No idea when I would have gotten around to it otherwise. This week's bonus feature is, no need to limit the hangout, get on 3 Days of the Condor. I have zero idea why it isn't talked about and seen more, other than, you know, it gets pretty close to the bald truth. Just a quick note on next week's episode, I will be taking the week off, and my good friend and filmmaker Joe LaMattina will be subbing in for me and doing a much better job than me. The week after that, the entire Lone Wolf and Cub series, and then back to regularly scheduled, unregular programming. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram and X to see what movies I'm renting next, and pretty much everything is on my Letterboxd. I am going to go watch some more movies. I hope you do too. Very well.